Okay, Don. I think we're rolling.
Let me check. Well, yeah, looks like
I mean,
it.
why would you check? We've got Flary Reuter to tell us about the state of our audio and video. He's the most trustworthy person when it comes to those things. He says
That's
AV
true.
good, and I'd bet the house.
Yeah, I mean he's done it better than I ever could. Big shout out.
Exactly. Sound good, nice, sound balance. I mean, probably not going to fix that this stream because hey, it's Friday, right? Nice to not do a podcast as well.
Yeah, I mean
Those are a fair bit of work. I mean, at least the way we do them, right?
yeah, I mean I just felt like the market moved so much that I mean it would be nice to just sit down together, just talk about it, see what's up.
Yeah, no, definitely. Cool. We've got some people to speak with, which is always a pleasure and a privilege. So yeah, let's do it. First things first. Thank you to Blockfolio, the sponsors of Technical Roundup, mobile trading app where you can't get liquidated, which is a a desirable trait nowadays. So be sure to check them out. I used them recently. Don't know if I mentioned it on stream. Sent some FTT and Solana to my sister as a, I don't know, brotherly gift purchase. Clear my clear my conscience. I don't even know. But yeah, it's like she had no crypto exposure, which is obviously sinful within the context of my family. So I was like, hey, download Blockfolio. And her first comment was how much better the app is compared to Coinbase, where she's the proud owner of one whole Ethereum, which is pretty cool, right? So yeah, got her set up, sent her some FTT, some Solana, told her it's the future to hold for a few years, and hopefully she speaks to me, regardless of market outcomes. So yeah,
I mean
that's
you gifted her the coin, so
yeah, it's
makes
a
you
gift. But then
better.
I told her not to sell, which is like the worst advice ever. I mean, it depends, right? But I just said don't sell. And if you want to sell, I'll like buy you out. Just hold it for a few years. We'll see what happens. So that's me bringing my family into the Ponzi. Very very irresponsible. But yeah, that's Blockfolio. Thank you very much. So Duck, stuff happened. We've had a lot of red candles on the daily and not that many green ones.
Yep.
And price is lower than it was previously. I don't know if anyone noticed,
It's a
but
new thing, right?
yeah,
Never
but
happened
that's
before.
my kind of covert analysis of the market. You know what? I'm gonna start with a bit of a like rogue question to the audience. Did because I was in US, like in my live stream, I made it clear that I was in USD, right? And then the follow up live stream we did after the big liquidations here, I was still in USD. And then technical roundup number 2 said something similar, which was this is the one from the second one in April, where it said a close back below 61,200 would make things ugly, right? It closed below it on this candle, I think, 6140. So that was a decent exit point. And then technical roundup number 3, which was a few days ago, it made the same case and price was at what, mid? It was like 56,000, where we said this looks like a bearish retest, and if you're buying this, you're buying the middle of the range, which doesn't make any sense, right? Now,
Mhm.
my some source of frustration is that there's so much like hindsight autofellatio going on Twitter, where people like just dig up the most irrelevant tweets and or bits of content or after the fact wisdom and then try to sound really clever, which is whatever normal. But
You don't
and
have
I'm
to
not
go
really
so hard on me.
no, not on you, not on you. But no, my point is like we're pretty terrible at the whole, not even clout collect, but kind of follow up to content sort of thing. At least compared to many of our peers. So my question to the audience is: was any of that at all helpful? Did anyone actually look at either the newsletter, my stream, Don's stream, and think, hey, maybe I should take some profit? Because if the answer is no, then what's the fucking point, Duck? Right? Might as well just be bulltards. If it goes unpunished, then it's far more popular. Then why not go down that way?
Nice. A lot of people are actually writing that it helped them. So
Okay.
sick.
I think more important than the outcome, which in this case was cool, because again, this in itself isn't like an autofellatio thing. Like, hey guys, we called it, look at the newsletter, etc. The more important thing is, and why I'm shilling the newsletter, is because the reasoning there is something that will become apparent over and over, right? It's not like, oh, like you see a lot of tweets which are like, oh, I'm buying at whatever price, or I'm bearish now. They don't give you any reasoning, right? So even if the outcome is correct, that doesn't really help you in the future, and it might even lower your. You might not even follow or consider the argument because there is no argument, right? They're just saying whatever directional stuff. I think the benefit in the case of the live stream, the newsletter, is more important than the outcome. There's actual fucking reasoning there, which is how you learn stuff and get better at stuff. What do you think, Duck? I've just given the fucking 6-minute monologue at the start of the live stream, but that's kind of off my chest.
I definitely agree. I mean, it doesn't really matter like what people say, like if they're saying up, down, whatever.
Right.
Their reasoning is the important part. Completely agree.
Right.
And I mean, that's what we try to give, right? So I'm happy it helped people.
Cool. I think just to recap what the main points were, and tell me if I'm missing anything as well, Duck. But like, we will talk about how we view the market now, and I'm sure we have separate views as well. But in terms of the things that were we had consensus on, the first was that price stalling after a breakout into big news is never a good thing, right? And it's something we wrote about even previously in Technical Roundup and when ETH was breaking out, etc. That the less time that's spent at big breakout / retest levels, the better. Especially if the market is leveraged, which means it's costing the money to stay in those long positions, and the funding they're paying on the notional amount kind of trickling down the account, bringing the liquidation higher, however you want to call it, right? When you get like when there's a big divergence between what the market is positioned for and their expectations, and then what actually is happening, right? When that gap becomes pretty clear, it's not one that can go without being bridged, especially if leverage is involved and you're bleeding funding every few hours, right? That's kind of the first thing to bear in mind. On the TA side, yes, retests really shouldn't hang around if they're good. And on the complementary kind of futures side, especially if the market is heavily leveraged, then those same participants who are breakout buying can't afford for the market to hang around and not go anywhere, right? So that's the first thing to note. I think the second one, which is really important, there were a lot of understandable and reasonable bottom calls when we had this massive historic liquidation candle. I think that's either like 7 billion or like something ridiculous market-wide, and like 4 billion on Bitcoin. And again, we wrote about this, and it's free, so there's no upsell here, there's no Discord, whatever, just trletter.com, more people read it, cool. The argument was, it's good to get this kind of leverage, flush, liquidation thing, whatever, but then once you get those increasingly favorable conditions where it's cheap to get long, you want people to get long, right? Like, just the liquidations themselves aren't enough. You need some sort of follow-through. And when the market fails to offer that kind of follow-through, that in itself is a sign that maybe things aren't done, and that the liquidation cascade is actually leading the next impulse or preceding the next impulse, as opposed to just being the one and done, right? And you can kind of see why you can't just focus too much on the liquidations, because obviously on this past drop, like, so many people got wiped on the first drop that in relative terms, the second drop is like fuck all in terms of licks, right? Like, it just doesn't compare to this one, because this flushed so much of the leverage. People's immediate thesis was that, okay, well, now the market's going to bounce because all the apes are out, but if no one buys it, then it's just going to keep going lower, right? Especially if spot is selling. So I think those are two big lessons. One is about breakouts and how long the market should or shouldn't stall after those big events. And the second one is about, yes, liquidations and those kinds of leverage resets are important, but more important is the follow-through. And the easier trade, or at least the higher probability trade, is on the follow-through a lot of the time, rather than the murky in between. Did I miss anything?
No, I fully agree. I mean, I can show what I'm looking at. Give me a sec.
Also, just go to trletter.com. I mean, it's free once a week. We don't spam you. It's just read the bloody thing.
Yep. But this is kind of my chart right now. We retested to the old range high, right? And I mean, that's clearly, after a wipe like this, that's clearly bearish, right? And the good thing about like having this kind of setup is that if it starts closing back above, I mean, then you don't have to be like aggressively bearish, or you don't even have to be bearish at all. You can just flip back, right? And this was like super tight risk reward on that front. And yeah, it turned out to be a bearish retest. Broke down. I never expected this level to hold much, just because, I mean, it's too close to previous support. But I think it's going to be good resistance if we get back up there again. And now we're back at support, right? So I went from resistance up here to support, and I could see it bounce back into resistance now. And I think, I mean, that's going to be an attractive sell for a lot of people. I'm not entirely sure if this is going to be the bottom or not. I think in general, we've made a lower low. So it pays to be a little bit cautious. But yeah, I could see it bounce here just based on the fact that we're in an area of good support. I just don't think that bounce is going to amount to much. And I'm going to be wrong still above 57. Which is pretty, like, whenever you bearish early or like cautious early, you get the benefit of being able to flip back like in a relaxed manner. Because let's say you're getting bearish here, right? I mean, where do you flip back, right? Do you just flip back at resistance up here or at resistance here? No. So it matters a lot where you get an entry or where you start assuming, okay, it's going to go down or going to go up. Because, I mean, yeah, if you're turning bearish right now into support, you're doing yourself a disservice, even if this breaks down, right? Because more often than not, it's going to bounce. So even if this breaks down and you're right this time, you're not going to be right next time, in my opinion.
What are the brain dead longs for you, either on Reclaim or on the nuke?
I mean, Reclaim long, pretty damn easy above 58. And that was like, when we were trading in here, I was like, brain dead long is above here. Because it could have just went in here, right, reclaimed this, and then chopped, and it did like head and shoulders thing, right? But now I don't think that's possible anymore. Like, let's say we go above here, like, would you expect this to like range and then break down? Like, I'd be very surprised if that happened. Sure. I mean, it can happen, but I just don't think it's going to. So that's the best one, 58, Reclaim of 58. And then I honestly think this one right now is probably a brain dead long if you're super bullish. The only problem that you do have is, like I said, it's a lower low. So the chances of it working out are less than it used to be. Because, I mean, we've only had this situation with like a significant lower low like this. I mean, like even also, we didn't even have something like this before. You could say this is a lower close, but we didn't really break the lows, right? So this is the first time that we've broken a low, traded below it significantly, where there's actual time in between, right? So you've had like a new high set, you've had everything, and I don't like that look, but I mean, I'd be more than happy if this proves me wrong, above 58, which I think is going to be above 58. You go to 75, 80, maybe 100, who knows? But I don't really see a good reason to get overly bullish for anything but bounce. Like I totally get the bounce play here from like 48 to 54 if you're like super greedy, but I don't really see the point for much more, because at that point the risk reward gets really good for the bears again, and then yeah, I mean, it's much from a risk perspective, it's much more attractive above 58.
Where do you buy a nuke?
Where do I buy a nuke? I like the weekly support a lot, and I know this looks like it's super, super far away, but I mean, it just makes sense to me to look for weekly, like high time frame support, right? And we haven't had any of those pullbacks yet, the entire bull market, which I think would, like, let's say this nukes, right? I think 38K and you'd see panic everywhere, and you see people shitting themselves, and you'd see a good buy opportunity there. Now, I'm not entirely sure if we're going to get there, but if we do get there, I mean, that's a brain net long to me too. Like, that's my favorite kind of long. I would even buy the nuke. I rarely buy, like, whenever it goes, like, just crashes. I try to avoid buying that. Just like, let's say this goes something like this. I try to buy here, usually.
Mm-hmm.
But in this case, the support is so good, I'd be more than happy to buy 38. And that's kind of the area, 38K-ish.
Nice. Yeah, that makes sense. I'll offer like a brief Bitcoin view, and then I want to talk about the elephant in the room, which is ETH, which is created for some really weird market conditions, or at least ones that I'm not entirely comfortable navigating. Anyway, we'll discuss it. So I'm willing to take a bit of a weird, less obvious view on Bitcoin right now. I'm somewhat open-minded to treating like this, the past couple months of price action, like this, as a range, right? And if we do that, then we can go highest close as the range high, lowest close as the range low, and then we get a midpoint at whatever, 51s. Now, literally just looking at that, your basic, and I agree that this cluster 32-38, this is where you bet big, because either it's the crypto bull market bottom or we're fucked. I don't think there's a reasonable second outcome to the retest of 32-38. So that's where you bet the farm. It's my favorite trade, kind of do or die type of setup. So yeah, I agree. So I think we'll keep that. But if we stay within where we've been trading and use it as your basic kind of price action, right? We had resistance, we closed above it, traded above it a bit, but didn't find acceptance, right? Kind of got stuck to the level, closed back below, and traded lower. So if these are indeed our range boundaries, you've got range high, right? Range low, and then the midpoint at 51. So with the candles we have right now, I think a plausible thesis, and again, what we do at the midpoint will kind of dictate whether this is accurate, but it's also weekly, it doesn't need to be as surgical, and could take some time to play out, blah, blah, blah. But it very well could be the case that we had an attempt at the range high, it failed, we're trading at the midpoint, but generally, as you know, again, it's not like a law of nature, but it's like a reasonable expectation. When you get price, whatever, in balance, it attempts to break from balance and then falls back within it. Usually the target for that is the other side of the range. And a lot of the time, actually, what it does is it tries to break one side, falls back in, trades the other side, then does this mirror kind of attempt to break from balance on the other side before, returning to the range. So you get like overthrow, no dice, back into the range, overthrow, no dice, back into the range. So if these boundaries are going to be relevant for the market, then what we have presently is attempt above, no dice, low hasn't been tested, and it's reasonable to assume some sort of resistance at the midpoint, especially while the low, the bottom of the range hasn't been tested. So those levels, obviously, whatever, range high, 57.5, 58, midpoint, 51, 52, and then the range low support thing at 45. And if we look at that on the daily, you can kind of see that the midpoint of that weekly range aligns with a pretty reasonable market structure level here at this swing low. So you can take the liberty of expressing that as 52 plus if you want. So you have overall resistance on the weekly. We tried to break it, no dice. Range low weekly is untested, and right now I still don't think it's the best area to stay long into 52 plus, because there's a chance that even if we trade above it, it ends up being the weekly wick, and the market kind of gets pinned around the midpoint in the semi-bearish or even ranging scenario. And I guess that's something I should clarify. Like, trading to 45 wouldn't technically be bearish if the weekly idea is correct, because its price is in a range in a bull market, right? We had excess at the highs, it wasn't enough, and so you normally go towards the lows. Only when the range is broken do you think, right, fuck, we had an overthrow at the highs, and now the lows aren't holding, then that's kind of a real shift in behavior. But for the time being, I mean, 45 support, if that doesn't hold, I'm going to bet the farm on 32 to 38. If that doesn't hold, I'm just going to fuck off and do something else with my life, to be honest with you. That's kind of my view on the market. But in terms of what's immediately applicable, yes, there is support at 50k, more or less. I would just be careful chasing anything too far past 52, because there's a good chance that you get some sort of weekly wick price action there, and the market, that's my real sticking point that I've got that's not too far from price. Does that make sense? I mean, let me know in the chat. I know it's a bit, whatever, clandestine.
It makes sense to me. No, I mean, something that we don't talk, well, I mean, I think you do plenty of times, but I don't talk enough about is that we're in a raging bull market, right? So, I mean, it makes sense to be a little bit more on the aggressive side, even when the chart looks shit, right? So the low time frames, like you look at this, you're like, okay, this is clearly, like I'm looking at this in isolation, and I'm like, this is clearly bearish, right? It's a range that broke to the upside, it's gonna break down. And then I zoom out and look at this, and it's like, do you really want to be too bearish on this? Because I mean, this is a raging bull market. So you gotta be a little bit careful on that front. That's why I've been saying, like, just reduce risk. Like if you're bull in a bull market and you see something bearish happen, I mean, reducing risk is more than plenty, right? You're just reducing risk, and then you put it back on whenever you feel like it, or whenever the chart allows you to. So yeah, I like it.
Yeah,
I'm a little bit more defensive right now, just based on the fact that, I mean, the fact, like, the chart looks meh. I don't like it too much. Like this looks like lower time frame-ish bearish to me. The thing that gets me more bearish is what we had with the bullish news in here, like how we topped and how the altcoins reacted to it. Because my thesis on like how we're gonna put a cycle top in on Bitcoin always has been like the altcoins start doing stupid shit because retail gets in, all that kind of jazz. And we've kind of had a lot of that in like with Save Moon and all that other like stupid BSC stuff. In combination with the good news that didn't amount to anything, that has me a little bit more worried than even the chart tells me to be. So, I mean, for me, it's like the combination of those two things that make me think it's wise to be a little bit on the defensive front. Yeah. Doesn't mean that the top has to be in, just means like there is a chance it is. And if that's true, I mean, being all in and just riding it all the way back down. I mean, I don't think it's going to go all the way back down, but if it is the top and you're going to get like a 40% haircut, it's nice to not sit in that.
Sure.
So,
yeah. Rogue says, when you guys say being defensive, what are you doing? Sell spot and sit in cash, hedge futures, or net short? I don't like being short outside of short-term trades. And I know inverse futures are like perfect hedges, literally. But for me, when I say I'm defensive or I'm in USD, I literally just convert my portfolio to USD or stable coins, whatever, and I hold those. That's about as complicated as it gets for me. I know it's imperfect in terms of the market mechanisms available and etc. etc. Like, for example, if I were short inverse futures, especially from where I exited, I could have just been collecting funding for a bunch of it and whatever, right? And the trade itself would have been great. But for me, when I say that, and in the context of the market that we're in, I want to be defensive even when I'm in cash, because the market overall is stupidly bullish, right? So I'm not comfortable just getting hugely short in those cases, and I'm not even hedging using futures or other instruments. When I say I'm in USD, I literally just mean my portfolio is now stable coins. And that just makes it really easy to redeploy whenever I think, yeah, okay, that's enough.
Yeah. I mean, for me, used to be I just hedged it. And I think that's still the best way to go about it if you kind of know what you're doing. And if you have the discipline to just kind of go with it. I can't anymore, so I just have to sell stuff. And it's super annoying because then you have to sell stuff and you have to get back in. And I mean, yeah, it's the most simple way that you can go about it, but I don't like it. It's just I have to deal with it. But the best thing that you can do, like if you're not hit by any kind of rules or regulations, in my mind, is just see how you can get rid of your exposure in another way and get paid for it, right? So, for example, at the highs you could have made a shitload of money just buying Bitcoin and selling futures, right? The futures were trading much, much higher than Bitcoin was. It's called is it cash and carry? I always forget the English fucking names for it. It's you carry the trade basically. Yeah. So you have Bitcoin on the one hand, which you buy, and then you have the futures which you sell. And the moment the futures expire, you take the difference, right? And the difference was really high there. So it's the best way. Like you see that, and you want to be hedging like at the highs, then do it that way. You make a bunch of free money, basically. The only way that you lose is if you then start panicking if it doesn't go your way and do some stupid stuff. But I mean, you lose if you're doing that anyway.
Yeah.
Cash and carry.
I think the elephant in the room that I want to discuss as well. So, like Bitcoin, broadly speaking, some support here, but the much better opportunities are higher or lower for the most part. Like the non-trivial trend deciding opportunities are very likely to be higher or lower, in my opinion at least. Seems that you agree. The elephant in the room, of course, is ETH, right? Which actually made a higher low, and doesn't even look... I mean, sure, it doesn't look great, you spike the all-time high, whatever, but compared to Bitcoin, the relative strength that it was showing on the nukes was pretty astonishing. And even now, you kind of have higher highs and higher lows, at least from a market structure point of view. So ETH BTC looks insane, right? It's like a high time frame breakout. It's kind of just going nuts and made a higher high recently as well. My thesis has been that ETH is crazy bullish, but I'm not entirely sure how detached it can get from the market more broadly, right? Like if Bitcoin is going to take a huge shit or is going to continue looking like shit, I think that kind of caps how far ETH can go. And we saw evidence of this yesterday with this all-time high poke and trading back below, which is why I made that tweet, which some people thought was ironic or sarcastic, whatever, which was weird, where I said, long ETH when Bitcoin stops looking like shit. I still think that's a really good trade. If you're going to be bullish crypto and you want to buy dips at a given point, area, whatever, at least from the available evidence, it makes sense to do so via Ethereum rather than via Bitcoin. I mean, that might change depending on, like, in the next couple of days, but at least recently, if you've been bullish crypto, the better bullish trade has been in ETH, not BTC, right? And this is something I've been pestering you about, where I'm like, look, Bitcoin looks like it wants to go to shit, but ETH is like poking at all-time high. How far or wide can this gap go? And I still don't have a hugely compelling answer, clear narrative, whatever. I still generally think for me what makes sense is wait for Bitcoin to get out of the shitter or hit some sort of support, and then you can bet on ETH. But we came pretty close to Bitcoin going to zero, and then ETH setting new all-time high and offering continuation. Just a really crazy divergence between the two. What's your kind of just take on all this? Because I know you follow altcoin, Bitcoin relationship, correlation stuff. It's far less clear to me probably than this to you.
So the way I look at it, the best way to trade ETH right now is just fuck the USD pair. Look at the BTC pair. And I mean, if you want to be bullish ETH, right, you buy ETH and you bearish Bitcoin, right? And then you sell some Bitcoin to kind of hedge that ETH. So you're kind of betting on ETH outperforming Bitcoin. And I think that has been a good trade. I think that's probably going to continue. I'm not entirely sure where the USD pair is going to go. And that's the chart that has me confused as well. Because, I mean, this looks not bad. It's not looking too good with the range high rate or whatever, but it's not looking bad, right? This looks kind of decent. But then you look at Bitcoin, you're like, yeah, this Bitcoin could take a shit. So this is going to go to shit as well. And then the moment it starts trading below that high again, it starts even looking bad on the USD pair. So, I mean, I wouldn't want to be just trading the USD pair. if I'm not thinking that the bottom is in. So I totally agree with you. Like, if you're bearish Bitcoin, or as long as Bitcoin looks shit, you don't want to be holding ETH USD. Now, you could be holding ETH BTC if you're bullish ETH BTC, or you could just wait for Bitcoin to bottom. And then I agree with you that ETH is probably going to outperform. The only thing that you have to be careful of when you're taking the Bitcoin trade, the ETH BTC trade, is that the moment Bitcoin takes shit, and this is something that I tweeted about yesterday, like the moment you see Bitcoin put in like a candle like this, or even a candle like this, is where people, like in general, when people are bullish the market, right, what they like to do is they take on a Bitcoin position and they're like, oh, I want to get more. And then they're longing altcoins, right? And what happens is, in a market situation like this, where Bitcoin goes down, their Bitcoin position gets fucked. And then if it moves too quickly down, they're kind of forced to sell. And they're not going to sell just Bitcoin, they're selling everything, right? And then you see these kind of low time frame wicks to the downside on altcoins. It's just forced selling, basically. So that's something that you have to be careful of. The good thing is, like, let's say you're bullish ETH BTC, that's a thing to watch out for eventual buys. But yeah, I mean, I don't really see a good reason to be bearish ETH BTC. I haven't for a while. So I mean, I think that could easily go to at least up here, which would be another, like, what, 15% maybe, 20 even. And then if it breaks that, I mean, another 50%.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows where that's going to go, right? And I don't think Bitcoin has to play ball for that to happen. It'd just be sad if it happened while Bitcoin was shitting the bed, right? Because then what happens is, if you're sitting in ETH USD unhedged against Bitcoin, you're not making any gains, even though ETH is going up on a relative basis. But that, like, this relationship, like the fact that ETH is going up against Bitcoin while Bitcoin is trading relatively weak, has, like, that's, I think ETH is going to take bid away from Bitcoin. So you see ETH look really good, and then people are like, okay, why should I be trying to knife catch Bitcoin if I can knife catch ETH, right? And you have less bid, and you have the same amount of sellers. So Bitcoin, the bottom, can just, like, it's easier to sell through bottoms that should otherwise hold. So yeah, that's my view. I mean, I'm not entirely clear on where ETH USD is heading to. It's just, I think ETH BTC is probably going to go up in the midterm, low, like in the next few days to weeks to months, maybe, as long as it's holding support, which is this. It's not too far away.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been really interesting. I saw someone tweet, they're like, for my Twitter, I don't remember who it was now, apologies to them, but they were like, the whole point of my Twitter account is to tweet whatever comes to mind, right? And I was thinking, like, if I were to do that, I would lose all of my followers in like a day, because, as you know, I'm like an amazing counter indicator when I'm not in the position, right? So, like, I've been sitting in fiat for like a week, and I've been bullish on every top and bearish at every bottom. Even though I haven't, like, moved around my portfolio, moved from stable coins in that entire time. So I'm kind of grateful that I'm slightly more reserved in my use of Twitter, because I'd be like an amazing counter indicator at this stage. But yeah, I agree, like, ETH doesn't look as broken. I just generally think it's easier to be bullish ETH when you're not worried about Bitcoin going to zero. And your long trades will probably just be far better when there's some evidence of strength from the market generally. And then there's that kind of roof that's over ETH's head as it inevitably gets dragged down by this. Once that's gone, I think that's a really, really good long. But yeah, a bit tricky. Someone asked about like a quarterly mid-range thing. As I said, the area where I'm going to be cautious. And again, you have to realize my perspective is biased because I've been like fortunate enough to be in stables for like a week now. So I'm not going to be as aggressive or as chasey, I guess, as someone who's managing from a position of weakness, so to speak. But on the technical side of things, the area that I care about, if we start getting green candles, which looks reasonable, is essentially this 52 market structure level, because it's the weekly midpoint and it's this prior swing low as well. So if we get through that, I think then we're in for a slightly better time, and probably come back to fill in some of this very sharp drop. But this isn't, 52-ish isn't an area that I'm comfortable ignoring, at least from a market structure point of view. And as I said, in terms of higher time frame stuff, I think the good trades, at least for my system, for me, are at or around the range low, so for sort of 45 and below, and then 32, 38, all or nothing kind of ride or die moment, because I don't want to be, I don't want to have much exposure below that. I think if things start getting really dicey. If anything, right now, the reasonable thing, I think, at least for me to do, is to just trade altcoins, ETH, etc., with USD collateral, and just do short-term stuff while this kind of fixes itself. And again, if this is really a kind of weekly range that has been correctly identified, then it can take a few weeks to play out anyway, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, someone in the chat asked if this could be like 2017 when Bitcoin topped, followed by a month of alt season. I mean, the chance of that, this being the top, right? In a bull market, calling the top is, I mean, it's a fool's game, right? You're not necessarily trying to call the top. What you're trying to call is the complacency bounce. Something I've said over and over and over again. Let's say this breaks down, bounces, and then looks like complete garbage and starts running out there, right? Then I think this is the complacency top and we're going to go down, which would be similar to like what we had in 17. The reason why I'm defensive is because I could see that being the case, right? That we're playing out the same altcoin kind of rule book that led to the top in 17, 18. Like there are similarities there, but I think like the fractal kind of game, if you're reliant only on that, you're probably gonna get screwed. It's just you're trying to find as much evidence of weakness as you can, right? And for me, the chart looked kind of meh, and then you also had the altcoin situation, and then you had the good news that resulted in a dump, or like not good news, but the coin listing, which, I mean, that's like 3 problems that you have, and when you have like that amount of confidence, you just get worried. But it's just saying, okay, is it gonna be like 17, and then just relying on that? It's not gonna help you much. So you gotta try to look at more than just that.
Yep. And again, something we've talked about previously. The lowest entry price-wise isn't always the best entry on the long side. Even if it may seem that way, sometimes entering from a position of strength will just mean that you have stronger hands, more willingness to hold, be objective, etc., rather than buying low, getting stuck in a position for weeks, and then the first green candle you exit, and then the market just roars off without you, while you've wasted like all of your mental capital in that shitty trade. SD says, can this turn into a long consolidation for Bitcoin like May 2020 with ETH and DeFi outperforming and then Bitcoin mooning at the end of the year? Look, again, I'm sure the Duck has a better answer to this, but I'm generally not a fan of being super long crypto if Bitcoin looks like shit. And I know correlations have been dropping and these sectors kind of have their own flows, etc. But if Bitcoin looks on the cusp, or just looks rough, or is away from structure, not at support, whatever, I'm just not comfortable following meaningful ideas about other sectors just going absolutely apeshit. Especially given we're in a sort of Bitcoin, at least up until now, Bitcoin-driven bull market. If I'm being cynical, a lot of the time, like 9 times out of 10, when I've read on Twitter that, oh, Bitcoin consolidates in alt season, they've just been fucking wrong every single time, every single week. It's just been pure cope. If anything, just like Bitcoin would take a shit, or Bitcoin would mega moon, and those theses would all be wrong. So I think they need to be treated with like quite a high degree of skepticism. I'm not against it per se, but I think that idea only comes to light if Bitcoin looks good in a range versus shit in a range. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, so I agree. I think in general, how you have to look at the market is when you see Bitcoin go up and altcoins go up slowly, and then at some point they catch up harder or whatever, that's constructive behavior, right? That's what you want to be seeing. When you see Bitcoin go down and altcoins start going up, that's a divergence right there, right? And you have the underlying market, which is Bitcoin, you have that weak. And then you have the altcoin market, which is the froth market, basically. You have that strong. Right. So when you get that situation where Bitcoin goes down on significant time frames and the altcoins go up, that's a divergence right there. And that's a pretty strong bearish signal. Now, you're still going to make a shitload of money in that time, which, I mean, we had that was literally the situation in 17, 18, which we had an old season. Froth went crazy and the underlying market went to shit. And then both went to shit at some point. So while I like to say, okay, you want to see Bitcoin top and then you get an old season, I mean, it's the exit scam pump season, basically. The old season that you want to be seeing as an investor in the space is the old season that's happening while Bitcoin goes up and altcoins go up as well, right? But that's what kind of happened with DeFi during this move. That's the stuff that you want to be seeing as an investor. It's not as easy to trade. I much prefer when you have the underlying market weak and the altcoin market go up, because then I can reasonably time where I want to get out of the underlying market and where I want to get out of the froth market. Because at that point, when I see that divergence there, I'm like, okay, I know that this is on a timer. I know that I need to get out. And even if I miss selling the top, or if I miss sell way too early, I can go into that trade and be super comfortable with it. And yeah, so for me, I like that divergence. It's not good for the underlying market, though, I think.
Well said. Yeah, it's just one of those things. I think it matters less nowadays, in many cases, because linear futures are all over the place, and a lot of people just trade more with, or at least have more USD stablecoin exposure, collateral, whatever, than before. So you can still trade the froth without being as exposed to it as in previous cycles. So I think that's cool. And I think that's kind of playing it from a position of strength, right? You can play the froth without your collateral being part of the froth. that's pretty cool. So maybe that's a decent bit of structure. At least that's what I'm doing, right? I'm always going to talk about my stuff to some extent, and that's sort of my inclination for the time being. I also just randomly wanted to share something that I stole from Masari. I get Ryan's emails every day. I don't read them every day, but they have a really cool way of breaking down sectors, how they look at the market, and they have all these different L1 ecosystems, and then the coins which come under them, if that makes sense. So they've got one for Ethereum, they've got one for Cosmos, they've got one for Polkadot, one for Binance, and one for Solana. And so they have those sectors and then the kind of underlying assets to some extent within those sectors as well. So I've literally just stolen that from their free emails. I should say it's not like a paid thing, right? Before it sounds too bad. Ryan Selkis, I probably butchered his surname there. Brendan says no cope under Solana. Come on, Cred. Good point. Cope USD. Thank you very much, Brendan. Yeah.
Wait, did you do it by hand or did you?
I did it by hand.
Copy
Yeah,
this?
I did it by hand.
Can you copy this and send it to me?
Yeah, I sure can. But yeah, this is how they had it in there. They had these line charts showing correlations and divergences and stuff. So I just literally stole it one to one. Now I've got this kind of layer one index of all the majors and then what the smaller caps are doing within those sectors, and it's kind of cool. At least makes me feel clever and organized about altcoins, you know. So I just thought I'd share that.
No, that looks really good. Is there a share button? Because I mean, I'm sure because I just asked.
Yeah.
Imagine if you could just say
export list.
Because I mean that would be. I mean, we can do it after stream. Do it next.
Should we attach it to? Someone said. Andre says next week's newsletter.
Yeah, I mean we can do that.
Let's do that. trletter.com. Sign up if you haven't already. Free, 1 email per week. Call the top. But go sign up and
we'll add it to the next newsletter.
Yeah. For sure. So yeah, that's just kind of the only productive bit of. I mean, honestly, I've been sitting in fiat, psychologically FOMOing at every top and being a doomer at every single bottom, and then just closing TradingView and opening up Overwatch and hard carrying these shitty diamonds as a main tank, even though people don't know how to play the game. That's been my life for the past week. But also, I've just been getting more sleep. I've been going outside, exercising a lot more. It's been, I don't know. USD is USD is bringing my life back to some extent, which is not something I thought I'd ever say.
I mean, that's been the same for me, honestly. It's been like I've gotten some life back in the last few weeks. It's nice. Hope that keeps on happening. Like, I don't want to see. I mean, if Bitcoin just takes a complete shit, I'm gonna have to go back to sitting in front of the computer all day.
Dude, yeah.
So I mean, I like a small correction to like 38, slowly but surely, and then continuation would be nice.
It would be, yeah. Let me see if I missed anything in the chat. Ray, Oxy, Maps, Fider, Adam to Solana Eco. Yeah, I don't know why they're not there. I probably should. There's probably a reason they're not there. Maybe it's a different one, a different ecosystem, but I definitely should add them. I think I've got them in Sam coins anyway. At least most of them.
Someone just said, "Can you do TA on coin?" And I looked at it and it looks complete fucking garbage.
Let's see it.
Holy shit.
Oh.
Who did that? It looks like crap. Like,
bro, it's just a falling wedge. Relax.
Yeah, falling wedge to like 0? Or how does that work? Fucking hell. So, I mean, you can draw stuff on here. I'm not entirely sure if it's super helpful. More of a hindsight kind of thing. But, I mean, this was the range, and you broke down below the range. And even if you use it like this, right, because that was your lowest close, you still, like, you retested it here, kind of retested here again with, like, a fake break back into the range, and that failed. And it's been dumping ever since. So, I mean, when you have this kind of new chart, I'm here in, like, the 30-minute time frame, TA isn't as important as the underlying fundamentals are, in my opinion, anyway. But like, you can do like draw this line, be like, this is resistance, and then trade off of that.
Or just look at it. Is it going up or is it going down?
Like, literally, yeah. Because the thing is, like, we are correlated to this thing one way or another. Or at least I think we're going to be more and more. Or this is going to be correlated to Bitcoin. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah,
we're also underperforming gold and diverging from the S&P, which kind of sucks into a Friday, right? S&P up. I think it made a new all-time high. I'm not sure. At least it fully retraced the Biden tax dump, and then gold. I think we're not doing too well, at least today. I
want to. Can I do this?
I think so. You should be able to if you do that.
Oh, shit. Yeah, that broke down quite... but it's like basically the Bitcoin chart.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
It's basically the Bitcoin chart.
Dude, just quick kind of rant moment. You did that TA on coin a moment ago. How much of this have you seen? Someone like gets in on a fucking IDO pre-sale, right? It lists on Uniswap. It does like this, and then it just starts going sideways. And then the dudes who bought the pre-sale, they're like, well, this is my TA. You've got resistance here. You've got support here. You've got, higher lows. And then if it pumps, like, dude, shut the fuck up. Like, your listing price, the way you got in was like here. And now it had its listing volatility. And now it's going sideways. There's no fucking TA to be done here. Stop insulting your audience's intelligence, for fuck's sake. People do with a straight face. It's so mental.
Yeah, I mean,
that Polkadot ecosystem is so full of shit. At least, like, it's very frothy. I'm sure there's maybe some legit stuff there somewhere. But at this point, like, holy fuck. The amount of... it feels like it's Groundhog Day. Legit the same chart. Like, mega pump, like, whatever, price discovery from listing. And then it goes sideways. And then I just see, like, a million bits of TA, like, explaining whether this is bullish or bearish. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? It just got listed and it's moving sideways now. Like, I don't know. It just feels like such a waste of time.
My honest opinion on it is that these people, and I hate that I'm calling out friends with this, but I mean, these people, they made money by getting in early, and now they're shilling their bags, and they use TA as a means to shill their bags, which is just basically they're trying to dump on the people. And I mean, I find it extremely scummy, to be honest, but I mean, to each their own.
You know what the issue is, and I agree. Like a lot of my friends like post listing charts, and they know my views, for example. But the bigger issue is the fucking projects and influencer agencies, whatever, hiring TA guys to engage, like, to post social media content around these projects. It's like there's a really good chance you don't know a fucking thing about this project or the Polkadot ecosystem or whatever, right? Your value is in trading, and then you fundamentally have an asset. Like, you're now kind of contracted to tweet some content about it, but all you know, or at least your specialism, is technical analysis, right? But because it just got listed, the amount of technical analysis you can meaningfully employ to fulfill your duties to this project is really fucking low. There's no real TA to be done. So I just think it's like my generous interpretation of this, because I have a conflict of interest, because a lot of my friends have made a lot of money on this, is that it's just a mismatch between the skill set of those people as traders and then what kind of duties they've taken on as part of the project. Am I being too nice? I don't know, maybe, but it always just seems weird to me. Because,
I mean,
yeah, it just doesn't make a ton of sense, you know?
So how it works is you only get in if you promise to shill it after the listing. So it's basically, I think it's sellout, and anyone that does it I have a lesser opinion of for doing it. I can understand why you would be doing it, because what
you're just fucking jealous, bro.
Basically, what you're doing is Bitcoin, or like Bitcoin lists, like let's say Bitcoin listed here, right? What you're doing is you're buying here and you can sell pretty much immediately. So you capture all this. And if it goes up, you get more, whatever. You're basically getting to buy below price for selling out your audience. And I mean, I can get why you would be doing this, because you're making 6 to 7 figures on that. But then again, I couldn't be doing it because it just feels so morally wrong.
Sounds like you're salty that you didn't get in, bro. It's okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's whatever. I'm not even angry at it anymore. I've just kind of been like, everyone that's been doing it, I've just not, I've been trying to avoid their company, because to me, it's something that I don't really, like, I don't like to speak to terrorists, basically.
Okay. You know what? I like the way, for example, Trader Main does it, where he doesn't really try to do TA on these things, but he's like, hey, I'll disclose that I'm whatever, sponsored, working with this company, whatever, and I'll actually invite their founder, dev, whatever, on my YouTube channel to explain the project to me and my audience. Like, I think that's fucking cool, right? He's not like this. You don't lower yourself by doing that, because I think if you just start doing TA on this stuff, there's a certain amount, like, of respect that's absent for yourself, because all of these people are really fucking good traders, right? Or at least they know how to trade, they know how markets work. There's no TA to be done on these things, which just list and are in price discovery and are just moving sideways, right? There's nothing meaningful to be done there. Like, if it breaks out, maybe it'll go higher. If it breaks down, maybe it'll go lower. Maybe it's correlated to the Polkadot fucking chart, whatever. But it's not like something that needs technical analysis, right? At least it's probably like the worst place to do TA. That doesn't mean you shouldn't partner with the project, or that you've got nothing to add, but at least, like, find other ways to do it which don't insult the intelligence of you and your audience. I don't know, I'm probably going to land into a hot fucking, a lot of hot water for this shit. But it's just my personal view. Like, there's no TA to be done on this. You know it. That doesn't mean you shouldn't work with the project. Just find an angle which is somewhat credible, Fuck.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I lost my mind over it because I was so angry at it, and then I was just like, okay, it seems to be like to me anyway, you can't stop it. It's going to happen every cycle. And I know that I don't want to be part of it, no matter how much money is offered to me. So I'm just never going to consider it. And yeah, that's that. And then if people fall for it, if people lose their money, at some point, like I've warned people about it. I've said that I find it scummy. I mean, at some point, you just gotta have to let it go. Otherwise,
I mean, kudos for disclosing. I'm not a total fucking tyrant. Like, at least some of the like reasonable people disclosed they're working this project, which is cool and already an improvement from the fucking ICO season. But it's just, I just have to, I guess it's just market fatigue at this point. I see all of these new listings and all the fucking TA on these new listings. I just kind of roll my eyes like, come on, people. Like there has to be a better way for you to bring your partnership, like to be an influencer, right? There has to be a fucking better way than this.
Definitely.
In my opinion, I've already got fucking 2 DMs on my. Like, I literally got my Twitter open on the monitor. I've already got 2 DMs. As a result of my comments, like it's just fucking ridiculous, man.
Yeah, it's not worth to talk about because it's not going to change anything, and no one really cares. It's just
the meltdown I had on stream, right? The specific one, and God bless Danny. He knows I love him, and I talked to him about this before I had my rant on stream. But I'm like, Pokemon. Fucking Pokemon! Like, do you understand the blatant intellectual property infringement that's going on? If Nintendo fucking sneezes and one of their lawyers like accidentally sees this, the whole thing gets fucking nuked, right? You're calling it Pokemon. Jesus Christ! Like, how is this a real thing? Like, oh, this one is rare, and oh my fucking god! Like, come on, people, be better, do better.
I mean, true. It's the market being crazy. And I think the more we kind of get these projects, right? For example, like what I've seen, Kobe spoke about it. Like someone sent him a DM, said, yeah, can you please promote my project? Mm-hmm. It's better than PooCoin. And I was like, dude, what the fuck? If that's the only thing, like if that's how you sell yourself, like we're in a fucking crazy bull market. Mm-hmm. Because like, legitimately, like even if for some reason PooCoin was the best coin in the world, right? You have to be in a stupid bull market that anyone would think that naming something like that is a good idea, right? Like everything has to have gone completely fucking mental for that to make any sense, right? And the crazy part is like naming it like that in a market like this is actually not the most stupid thing to do, right? Because like people are like seeing Dogecoin go up and they're like, okay, I'm just going to buy everything that's stupid. And that's what these people are playing at. But that only works in a like beyond reason bull market. And I mean, that's what we have been in. It's just that always ends badly at some point. I mean, I wouldn't want to be holding PooCoin for years and years, no matter like what it stands for, its fundamentals or whatever. I mean, it's just
fundamentals of PooCoin, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, we're at extreme froth. I think retail's been getting back into crypto as well. Doesn't mean it has to be done. It just means that I really like Light's post on Twitter. He said, you don't have to like if you're dancing with the music or whatever. Right now, I don't remember the exact wording, but he said, like, you don't have to stop dancing, just dance closer to the door. And I still think that's, like, the best way to put it, right? I mean, it's still a good party. It's still fun. But, I mean, if you're not, like, at least for these, like, giga shit coins, if you're not looking for the exit or for any warning signs, I mean, you're just going to get run over at some point. And that's something that I mean, I'm going to repeat over and over again. I mean, PooCoin could go up 100x, it's still going to be the same. Like, it's still going to be true that at some point, like when the market goes like this and you're stuck in like literal shit, might be wise to kind of have the exit in your eyes.
Well, there are some good TA questions in the chat as well. Specifically one about your market structure point. If this closes like higher, what needs to happen for it to be a lower low? Is it the fact that we just traded so far below this swing low that makes a lower low? Or does it need to close below this 25th of March swing for you to be like, okay, that is a daily lower low? Like wick close, or just the fact that we traded that much below it takes the biscuit for you?
So I look at it two ways. So the first one is we just wicked lower, which is basically a lower low. The more important part is closing below it. So I would argue that this was, and this is why I said it earlier, this, you could say that that was a lower low. It's pretty, whenever you get like market structure things where they're really close together, I would just say this is one, right? Mm-hmm. So this is one low, even though like you had two spikes down. But in general, like let's say we close below this red line today, then we'd have both a lower close and a lower low just based off of that we went lower. So it's both. You can use whatever you like more. For me, it's been the closest that have been working better in general. But you can, like in this case, for example, if you just went off of the wick, you would have done better. So it's like sometimes one works, sometimes the others. If both of them happen, it's almost like that's the confirmation that you get, the cursed word of confirmation. You have both. It's pretty damn certain that it's going to be a lower low and it's going to stay a lower low. And it's going to stay a swing point and be important. If you get one of them, you can be aggressive or just wait for the other one too.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, I normally lean on closes. But yeah, it really depends.
Yeah. Someone asked you about fibs, and I do the same with fibs. So when I'm fibbing something out, and I've not done that in ages. Actually, I don't even know where that is. But if I'm fibbing something out, I do it the same way. So highest close, lowest close, and then just use it that way.
Fibbing in like British slang means lying. Like, so when I'm fibbing.
Shit.
Yeah, I haven't measured any retracements in a while as well. Sometimes on the like very retail heavy meme coins, I'll like do the 618 golden pocket Fibonacci magical spiral laws of the universe type of stuff. Tends to work, but I haven't like meaningfully measured any. I mean, there hasn't been that much, right? I mean, I know people were using fib, like the reverse thing, where you go from high to low to get targets past all-time high. Fib extensions, that's the one. They were actually really good in 2017. Don't know if you remember. Yeah. But yeah, no, I haven't pulled that one out of the old drawer for a while.
I just opened the chat. Like, this is something that I drew on the stream.
Nice.
And I mean, I never posted on Twitter, so I can't get any clout for it. But I mean, anyone that's seen it looks like I'm a fucking genius. I love drawing these. Reminds me of Ed back in the day, if you remember.
Sure.
He always drew like just boxes in the middle of nowhere and didn't explain where they come from. And you look so smart when you do it. And when you do this, like I just drew this and I'm like, okay, this is where it's gonna head. And I just drew it in the middle of nowhere. And when it goes there, it looks so fucking smart. But like legitimately, this box was based on nothing. It's just.
But thanks to the 100x long, I'm rich now. So I appreciate you sharing my box.
But it's kind of hilarious that we actually made a rising wedge and actually broke down, right? I mean, we've had like, this is the entire 16, 17 meme where we had the rising wedges and then broke out of them back in the day. And not as big as this one, obviously. But yeah. I mean, there you had a bunch of confluence too, right? False breakout and failure of the rising wedge or whatever, top of the rising wedge, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, Loomdart saying rising wedgie, what a nice retest.
Oh, Loomdart's in here.
I think
sick.
So, unless it's a very dedicated impersonator.
We need to get Loomdart on again.
Yeah, and talk about GBTC again.
Yep.
The return of midwit season. This actually is a good question. So you know that bell curve meme, right? How like there's like 60 IQ, 100 IQ, 140 IQ, or I don't know how it works, what the exact breakdown is. It's like the one in the middle is called midwit, right? Like,
I like it.
What are the ones? What are the extremes called? Maybe chat can help. So if this is like, you know, the whole bell curve meme, whatever, right? It's like if this is midwit who doesn't make money in the bull market, what are these? Is this like I don't know what to call them.
I mean, if you want to get
is this like dimwit,
genius and retard?
No, hold on. It's midwit, dimwit, and then segwit.
Yeah. Oh shit.
Let's see what chat is saying. Top wit. Dimwit,
Top
midwit,
wit.
top wit. Sage. Okay. Top wit or
I
sage?
mean-
Segwit. Yeah.
Yeah. For the people that don't know the meme, right?
Yeah. Go on. Give us the lore.
So how this works,
Wait,
right?
be
So
right
you
back.
have
30 seconds. Go
Yep.
off, King.
So you have an IQ curve, and this is a bell curve, right? Works for a bunch of stuff, right? But like IQ is measured as an average, right? 100 is the average, or should be anyway. And then you go to the left, and you get below 100, and then you go to the right, and you get above 100, right? And how it works is that most people are around 100 IQ. And then the further away you go from it, the less people you have, right? And the meme is in the markets in the last few months, if you're 100 IQ, so if you're using your brain, and not in a genius way, but like in a just obvious way, you're not going to make money. But if you're anywhere left and right to it, like if you're a genius, or if you're completely stupid, you're going to make money, right? So the simple stuff is going to make you money, and being a genius is going to enable you to see that, right? Basically. And what I've been noticing is basically that this kind of like, you're not making profit if you're in this range, has widened quite a bit. So you have to be either a fully, completely stupid person. I mean, you save moon people, for example. I mean, it's the most obvious scam ever. Elongate, the same thing, right? You have to be completely 50 IQ. Like back in the day, it was 80 where you made money, right? Anything below 80 made money, and anything above 120. Now it's like anything below 50 and anything above 150 makes money. But it's actually hilarious how true it has been. Like if you try to reason any of this, you're not gonna be happy because you're not gonna make any money. Unless you're like a giga brain that can understand everything, which, let's be real, most of us just aren't. So yeah, it's been hilariously accurate. Now you know the meme and how IQ measurement works, because this is literally how it works. You have most people around 100 because, I mean...
Conclusion, eat crayons.
I mean, you don't have to eat them. You can put them in your brain, right? Like Homer Simpson does. He put them up there, and then he was happy.
The market's been going up since we've been live, I think.
Yeah, so we talked about 54.
You just like continue to. It's like inverse up only.
Yeah.
If you want the old season, you just get up only and us to stream at the same time. Bitcoin goes sideways. You just fucking trade altcoins.
No one knows what the fuck's going on. Like people are trying to counter trade up only and trade with us. It's not working. And then they have to get altcoins.
Yeah.
But yeah, in general, I still think like it makes sense to bounce here. The thing to watch is, I think, like, let's say we bounce here.
Oh
like,
shit, someone says put that meme on a hoodie. Maybe there's something to that idea.
That's a good idea, yeah.
Yeah, I'll make a note of it in our pinned.
Oh yeah, nice. I was just about to say whoever said it should DM me on Twitter or something that I remember, but that's easier. The only way, like, let's say this turns out, I'm just going to remove this. This turns bullish, right? A good way for this to turn bullish would be, like, let's say we retested this low here. Now we're bouncing. We bounce into like resistance, which is up here, right? And then we go lower again, which I could see. Like I could see all of this happen. But then we find a bid, basically around here. And I don't want to be drawing, like I don't want to have this on the chart right now because it's just going to make it, like it's not going to be usable on the upswing, but it's going to be usable on the downswing. So the moment we actually start trading at that resistance, I'm going to add a support down here. And if that holds, I think we could rally from there. So that's what I'm going to be watching. I don't, like, that's something that I do oftentimes when people are like, why did you add this? It's like cope or whatever. Like, for example, this resistance I added after the fact. So like I didn't have it as support, but I added it as resistance. And the reason why is because I would have never bought that support just on its own, but I would sell it as resistance. And the same thing is true for support lines, obviously. So
I remember shilling you that support to buy it.
Yep, I remember that too. I mean, it was good for a while. It just turned back into resistance. But yeah, so if we start trading higher and then turn this back into support, and I'm not going to use it as resistance because, I mean, one, we are kind of trading in it right now, so it's pretty hard to do. But in general, it's better as support than it is as resistance, I think.
Yeah, pretty reasonable. Thing is, like, the title of the stream is something like, what is it? Damage assessment, or assessing the damage. It's not too bad right now, all things considered. And there certainly is a path forward. I just think, like, if you rush and try to make it all back and like FOMO into the first bounce, do whatever, or expect just this to resolve in the really, really short term, like immediately, yeah, I don't know, you'll probably lose money. It seems to be a shitty way to trade, in my opinion. Yeah. But yeah,
just forcing stuff is just not worth. Like, the best thing that you can do, like one of the best skills that you
not
can
too
have,
bad, says the man in stable coins. Yeah, okay, guilty.
One of the best things, or one of the best skills that you can have as a trader, is knowing when not to trade. Because, like, most people, like, they have their edge figured out, right? At some point, you trade this for 5 years, you know, okay, I have an edge in this and this condition. And then what they do is they just can't sit on their hands. And then they have an edge that makes them consistently money. And then they lose consistent money when their edge is not present and they just can't help themselves. And it's something I've seen a bunch of people have issues with. It's a little bit of a self-control kind of issue. And I think that's one of the areas that everyone should be working on. Just try to figure out in what market conditions you don't want to be trading, because for most of you, you're going to be losing in one type of market condition most often. And I've seen people that aren't profitable traders turn into profitable traders by just figuring out when not to do something. So, I mean, it's as simple as the market, like when it's up only, right? The market is basically supporting you. And if you're really good at kind of taking your brain off of things and you just see this is bullish market structure, just goes up and you just long it and you're happy and you make money. And then you keep on doing that. And then you see, okay, we're now in a sideways market. I'm just going to keep trading like that. You're probably going to lose money, right? And if you can kind of figure out in what kind of market or in what conditions you're good in and where you're worse, it's going to be a huge upside for you. So, for example, for me, right, I'm really, really good in these kind of conditions. Like, this was my playground. I was really good at it. I'm not as good trading this kind of stuff because I need technical pullbacks. I need the market to basically punish people, and then I buy the punishment, and that didn't happen on the upside. So for me, this is much more difficult to trade. So I've just been trading way less, right? I've just been holding some and made money on that, because I know that this isn't my
Everyone's going in with the kinky jokes, of course, when you said I trade the punishment. I was going to say there are services for that, but I was like waiting for you to finish. But chat jumped in before I could.
They front ran you.
Yeah,
but sure. Legitimately, you're good at this, like the sideways thing, nice. Seek it out. You're good at this, nice. Take full advantage of that. Or you're good at this. I mean, same deal, right? And then if you're not good at one of the others, just make yourself a note of it and avoid it. That's all you have to do.
So, you heard the man. If you like punishment, reach out to him. So I think that's all I got from that. No, I agree. But the thing is, most people tend to adapt too late anyway, which is kind of the shitty part. Like, the trend is like up for months and months and months, and when they finally just start slamming the bid, it's like at the top, or like when it starts ranging, just as a kind of capitulation or whatever.
Yeah, but the reason why they're doing it is because they're bad at trading that, right? They're bad at trading this up movement. They've been getting used to like sideways or whatever, and then they're really bad at trading this. Yeah. And you don't have to, like, let's say this goes up a bunch. I mean, it's going to go sideways at some point again, or you find another market that does what you want it to, right? But
or like a sector or some altcoins or like a shorter time frame trend, right? Some fucking something.
Yeah. So you're going to figure something out. It's something that that's really helped me, because I mean, I've had problems with that in the past. I mean, I went through this and I was like, I have no fucking idea how to trade this. I'm just going to hold. And that experience helped me with this, because I mean, fucking hell, this is fucking nuts. And I didn't expect it. And I could have all in leveraged long this and made a shitload of money. But I mean, I'm content with just making a bunch with like Bitcoin just going up. And I know that I'm gonna, like, the moment I start going completely nuts with something like this, trying to trade it, I'm gonna lose a bunch of money. So I tend to at least try to avoid it and see if I can get a market that trades like my edge kind of is. I don't know if that makes sense.
You should go trade the Bund or something, dude. Like,
nah.
I'm getting some questions about the daily. Yeah, daily. I mean, might close green. That'd be cool. Certainly.
Would it change anything for you?
Short-term low. I don't really think so. Like, if I'm being conservative, the only thing that would change something is like a 2-day. I mean, daily is really aggressive. Like a 2-day or ideally weekly close above the midpoint of the weekly range, which for me is like 5130, 5200. So like real strength through 5200, which is this market structure level, and weekly mid-range. That's actually pretty good. I mean, technically, if I'm treating my weekly range with the respect it deserves, it's essentially range high, range low, range midpoint. If the market's really bullish, it bottoms at the range midpoint, goes back to the range high, reclaims, goes up. That's like literally the most bullish thing I can think of. It would be something like that. Where it just overextends through the range midpoint, gets bid up aggressively, and then just crawls up and really doesn't find any resistance. And then some good news comes out, and you know how Bitcoin is. That will probably be the most bullish case. But for the time being, again, similar vein, I have the privilege of being in stables. I don't need to make like short-term decisions. But generally speaking, for the course of what's left of the week, and generally on the daily/weekly time frame, this 51-52 area is like a important spot for me. Only if that really gets slammed would I be open-minded to like re-adding some exposure, etc. But even then, to be completely honest with you, just looking at it, as we said in the newsletter, I'm not a fan of coming to strong conclusions at the range midpoint. Historically, when I've done that, of course, what has happened is price comes to the range midpoint, comes up, I long because it seems like an early reclaim, and then it just fucking nukes the range low, and then the move comes, right? So like front running the actual range trading for me works best at the boundaries, right? So like at the extremes, at or above the range high, at or above the range low, the kind of weight of the decisions that are made at the midpoint just aren't that high, or isn't that high for me. I don't like coming to firm conclusions bang in the middle of a range. So that's kind of what I'm eyeing up. And look, this is quite a big bounce from the lows, right? Like, especially into a weekend, you know, if we reach this market structure level, that's like a 10% bounce, which isn't bad at all. So chasing the tail end of that into resistance, trying to catch a green daily candle, not a trade that I would take personally. I don't know what you think about catching the daily open flip on a candle like this into the weekend. Would you have weekend expectations, by the way? Sideways, alt season, ETH moons?
No, I think it's going to be boring as fuck, honestly. I hope it will, because I'm going to try to have some real life. No, but I think...
You're going out again?
I mean, I know that I have something planned, but I forgot what.
Wow, what a Chad.
Yeah, weather's good.
Your social life just plans itself, and you just decide to show up. That's pretty cool, dude.
I mean, that's how it's been. I mean, I want to go take a bicycle ride, whatever, tomorrow. Just take a trip. Because if the weather stays like this, fucking beautiful out, I want to take advantage of that. Because I'm like white as a ghost, need some sun. And I've been noticing that my mood gets significantly better if I actually get some sunlight. Surprise, surprise.
That's shocking, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think it's going to be sideways to maybe we're going to get the 54 kind of bounce. If that happens on the weekend, I think that's a strong sell. If it doesn't happen on the weekend, I mean, I'd be a little bit more scared to sell at 54. Just based off the fact that weekends moves tend to scam more than days during the week. Reason for that being, for the people that don't know, is just that a lot of desks are just not open. So a lot of like bigger market participants aren't trading. So it's easier to move the market in one way or another. So let's say you want to be manipulating the market, or just you want the market to be somewhere, it's easier to do it on the weekend. It's getting less and less, like it's getting harder and harder the bigger the market cap goes, but still, like there's less volume, less liquidity, generally speaking, on the weekends.
Yeah. And we've seen that sometimes end unpleasantly when there's less liquidity during liquidation cascades, right? So price just takes a bigger shit than it would otherwise. Yeah. Also, funding's like negative across like all coin margined Bitcoin contracts right now, which is
really
pretty neat.
Yeah. Fucking so run it up.
Yeah.
I mean, bears need to get, like, that's the whole game, right? And this is something, like, I'm not saying this is going to turn into bear market, whatever, but, like, in general, how bear markets tend to work is that bears just get ass fucked as bulls do, right? Like, that's the funny difference between, like, bull markets and bear markets. Bull market, up only, everyone makes money. Bear markets go, like, trade in a way that bulls get completely wrecked, but also like early bears and in general just not careful bears get fucked the same. So it's like bear markets are just like a select few make money, a select few bears, everyone else gets wrecked, and bull markets everyone makes money. So I mean, I get why people fucking hate bear market, and I mean it makes sense, right? The market constricts, you have less liquidity, it's just less fun to trade. I love trading downswings, but bear markets is something else, right? But like in general, like downswings like this, you gotta have some. It takes more skill, in my opinion, to trade this than just the up only bit. But maybe that's because I trade more on the downswings than I trade on the upswings.
PTSD.
Yeah. But yeah, I gotta run.
Sure.
And we've gone for quite a while.
We have indeed.
But yeah, it was a lot of fun, I think.
Yeah, we should, I don't know, we should probably schedule these every, 2-3 weeks, maybe even once a month, depending on how our infamous podcasting schedule goes.
I mean, see what chat thinks about it, maybe comment or something.
Like the video if you want to see more Casual Friday, you know how it is. And leave us a comment as well, we'd love to hear from you. But for the time being, that's all we've got. Please go up. is kind of what I'll leave you with. Subscribe to the channel, subscribe to trletter.com, free newsletter, etc. Go to Degen Drops, buy a hoodie for charity, all of that fun stuff. A thank you, of course, to Blockfolio for delivering some Solana and FTT successfully to my sister. Maybe she'll be rich, maybe not, but also for sponsoring the show. So check out Blockfolio where you can't get liquidated because it's spot. And yeah, Duck, it's been fun. We'll chat soon. Audience, thank you for spending your Fridays with us and hope you'll continue to do so. And yeah, we'll see you on Monday Markets. Peace.
See you. Bye-bye.